Hi, I'm Nikki McDonald, Content Director at O Reilly Media, and I'm here today with Jamie Dobson, CEO of Container Solutions. Hi, Jamie.
Hey, Nikki.
Thanks for joining us today.
My pleasure.
All right, so let's start by having you tell me a little bit about yourself. Like how did you become CEO of Container Solutions, and what was your journey that brought you there?
Yeah, it's interesting to sort of pick where the starting point is. I was very lucky that I started programming when I was 9 years old, actually. So I was sort of the beneficiary of a schools or a Computer for Schools initiative. So that was really where they started. And then after graduating in computer science in the 90s, no, 2000, in 2000, I went on to become a professional software developer. And things back then were a lot different than they are now. So, the things we might take for granted now, open source software, good content on the internet, of course, which O'Reilly provide a lot of, tutorials, systems of coaching, they were non-existent. So it was very much a sink or swim culture, and both me and my co-founder, Pini Resnick, sort of were thinking independently, because we didn't know each other, if we ever start a business, we'd like to do it right, make it inclusive, make it safe for engineers, especially young engineers, to build their careers upon. And really that was where the genesis of the idea for me started to begin.
Yeah, I graduated in the 90s too and worked in tech, so I know exactly what you're talking about. But I worked in publishing for a magazine called Mac Addict. So we were trying to supply those things for you, but it's definitely, we've come a long way. Tell me a little bit about Container Solutions. Like, tell me about your company, and maybe a little bit about where your customers struggle and what you do to help them do better at their jobs and with their work.
So your average company would see a talk about maybe some of the Silicon Valley unicorns and cloud native. Some of them would be inspired, but most of them would be crushed, because the destination is very clear, but actually the starting point is very difficult. So where we're very different to our competitors and to other companies in the market is we're very much focused on what's going on right now in your company. And of course we talk about cloud native, so large scale distributed systems, microservices, public cloud, but we see that as the end state. So Container Solutions is very much focused on strategic planning, strategic design, and starting very, very small. So thinking big, but starting very small. The things that resonate most with our customers are a reduction of risk, because risk is very, a difficult thing for most of our businesses or colleagues to carry, and an increase in independence. So gone are the days of 5-year lock-in contracts and consultancies who live with you or camp with you for years and years. Those days are finished. And the more we speak about risk reduction and increased control, the more this resonates with our customers. You take all of our activities, our public speaking, the things we do, workshops, training, coaching, project by project work, and you see that everything we do is about reducing risk and increasing independence.
Yeah.
Once you get through those main blocks, then it starts to get interesting. Distributed microservices, secure microservices, the onboarding of hundreds, potentially thousands of developers. That's when we start to get that real pace. And helping customers, with that journey, that's what Container Solutions does.
No, and that kind of brings me to my next question, which is, I know that leadership topics are really close to your heart, and I think you have a unique culture at Container Solutions. So could you describe that a little bit for us, like what the culture is and how you help to develop that?
Yes, certainly. So leadership is a funny thing. I think it's not quite what people think, and it's changing shape as time progresses. So the strongman type of leadership that we maybe saw in businesses in the last generation, that's sort of gone now. Engineers couldn't. Well, maybe
is it everywhere?
I don't know. Yeah, I think that's a very telling nod. Certainly at Container Solutions, we're trying to get rid of that. We don't have that type of leadership in our organisation, and we're trying to inspire other companies, including the companies we work with, our partners and our customers, to think differently. So leadership at Container Solutions is really about reversing the hierarchy. So we don't really have, for example, middle management. So we don't have engineers who report to a line manager, ask them how something works, or if they can book a ticket, for example, to come to the conference. So rather we have engineers who are trained to think for themselves, and that's a very big part of our onboarding process. And then these engineers are supported from below, from marketing, sales, even accounting. So our CFO regularly teaches engineers and our other colleagues what a balance sheet is and what are the effects of their decision on the profit and loss for their specific project.
See, I don't think that's normal. I don't think you can, I'm not saying normal, but I mean, I don't think that's common. I do think that's probably, that's a really great, but...
Well, so the thing is, what happens is when people come to Container Solutions and they get this autonomy, there is a 3 to 6 month period of utter terror. So, so autonomy is something we all say we want. We want our bosses to set us free. We want to release our passion at work. But we are trained from a young age, from being children, to behave ourselves in an educational setting that asks us to conform. And then people come to us in their 20s and we say, don't worry about that conformity. You can be yourself here. And people actually say to me, how should I be myself? I was like, well, you would know better than me. And so if you're going to go for this type of, we want to give birth to this next round of professionals. So the birth that Pinny and I, our own growth as professionals was very lonely process. It was a difficult process. We want to make that process easier for the people who work with us now. I think the birth of, or the use of autonomy as a principle gives birth to this next round of engineers. Somebody needs to take my place one day. Now somebody's got to deal with climate change, autonomous cars, and that somebody maybe not, might not be us, but could very well be one of our younger colleagues. You can only do this, you can only run this autonomous sort of office and company with massive amount of training. Conflict resolution, an understanding of your awareness, resilience, and so it's difficult, but the reward for the people who work at Container Solutions is tremendous.
I think you had it right with the massive amount of training that's required. And I don't know that a lot of companies really put enough into training their employees because it's a big investment, like time, money. In the people themselves, and you want to hope that the investment will be worth it and they'll stick around, right?
Yeah, well, that's the risk, that they won't stick around. The thing is, organisational hypocrisy, it stinks. So if you put on your website where you work in an autonomous self-managing team and then don't support that with training, it will not work. And people can spot that from a mile off. At Container Solutions, we have a development programme, and most of our new colleagues go on it, maybe in their second year. It runs for 10 months. It has 9 or 10 modules, and everybody on the programme has a bi-monthly meeting with a psychologist to understand what they're feeling. Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah, indeed. How do they feel? What's happening? What's the situation? As well as working with the psychologist, they also have a coach and a mentor. This is serious business. And that culture is transmitted to our client work, where our customers are like, oh, wow, that's how you move to the cloud.
Wow.
Difficult work.
So where do people, I'm getting off topic a little bit, but I find this really interesting.
Yeah.
So where do people, have you found, do they struggle the most, like in this training? Did you teach them things like spreadsheets or thinking business topics and all kinds of things they're maybe not used to or weren't expecting to learn or ever having done before? Are there some areas where most people kind of have a hard time?
The content is easy. So looking at a spreadsheet and understanding that is quite easy. Learning about marketing, how to change insights into actions is also quite easy. The hardest thing is trying to unroll 20 or 30 years of behaviour that asks you to trust. But for example, let's say you've worked out the P&L. You know that somebody's about to make a mistake and you know what the financial effect should be. What do? Bearing in mind that we are an unfunded company. Well, the right thing to do is to let them make the mistake and take the hit on the cash. Now, you ask somebody who's maybe 32, 33, who's managing or leading a team, would they have the sort of confidence to let that mistake happen? That is the hardest thing. Trusting your people. And I'm the CEO, I've been doing this for years, and even I panic and think, don't do that. And then every time I do that, all I do is delay the learning process. And then I kick myself. But of course, I want the business to succeed, to not go bankrupt, at the same time as trying to grow the maturity of the people I work with. It's not easy. No,
it doesn't sound like it is. So I want to thank you for coming to Velocity this week and for hosting our leadership track. Our track hosts are the unspoken heroes of Velocity because you sit in these rooms and you take care of the speakers and you take care of the guests and you tweet about the talks and you just basically like a very lovely host for a day, but it's a whole day and it's a big commitment. So thank you for that. What does it mean for you and your company to be involved with Velocity?
Well, we're very happy to be involved with Velocity. Our colleague Adrian wrote a best-selling O'Reilly book using Docker. It's a little bit of it's a little bit of a milestone being able to actually afford the gold sponsorship. So it feels like we've actually arrived somewhere. But I think more generally, we're very happy to interact with engineers, especially engineers who are younger than us, who are trying to find their way. On the one hand, it's never been safer to be a non-male engineer in tech, or to express your sexuality or your gender as you would prefer. You don't have to hide anything, but there's still a long way to go, right? We want to be involved in those conversations. The keynote today, delivered by my colleague Anne Curry.
She was amazing.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
This is about ethics in Kubernetes, because going fast and making ethically right choices, they don't always go together. We want to be in that conversation, and I think coming to the conference and working with all the different participants and the organisers just gives us a chance to not dominate proceedings, but certainly take part in them, and that's pretty special for us.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you for being here today and this week. It was great having you here.
Thank you, Nikki.